to pie charts. Just before we start, I just want to remind you that there is a notes jotter available for this video. Just check the description below for a download link and you can work along with me as we go through the video. So in this case, we've been told that the table below shows how the people in an office get to work each day, and we're asked to draw a pie chart of the information. Now, a pie chart is used in order to use proportion to show how many people are in certain groups within a whole collection of people. And it all comes from the fact that we have a circle. A circle, we know, has a total of 360 degrees. So all of the angles of our pie chart have to add up to 360 degrees in total. And so the proportion in terms of the angles must be the same as the proportion in terms of the frequency and the total frequency. And so there is a direct relationship between this column of frequencies and this column of angles. And that relationship is that this total frequency must equate to 360 degrees in total. And the key here is that in the vast majority of cases, when you come across a question about pie charts, this total frequency will be a number which can be multiplied to make 360, just to try to make it a little bit easier for you as you are doing the questions. And so how many times what do I need to multiply 180 by to make 360? Well, I need to times by 2. And because that is the relationship between the total frequency and the total angle, it's also the relationship between each individual frequency and its angle. And so, as we go through, all we need to do is for each of these frequencies multiply by 2. So 14 times 2 will be 28. 70 times 2 would be 140. 32 times 2 would be 64. 48 times 2 will be 96, and 16 times 2 will be 32. And if we do a quick sum up of all of the angles we've just worked out, they do indeed add up to 360 degrees. So the next question is, how do we go about actually drawing the pie chart? Well, this is where we require a protractor, because we're going to have to measure some angles at this point. And so you will always be given a circle with a radius already drawn, and the easiest way of going about this is to turn your protractor so that the line along the bottom is in line with your radius, and that the cross in the centre of your protractor is right on the very centre of your circle. And all we're going to do is we're going to measure the angle that we are looking for, 28 degrees. And all we need to do is we're going to use the outside numbers, because these are the ones where we are starting at 0, and we're going to go around to 28 and just make a small mark. And we're going to have to take our protractor away. Now at this point, you could, if you are using your protractor, you could use the straight edge to draw your line in, but you're just going to join up so that it's in line with the point. As you go along, I would always suggest filling in a title. So this first section was walk. So let's just write the word walk in that piece. Now what you should be doing when drawing a pie chart is continuing from the shape, from the line that you've just drawn. So at this point we will turn our protractor around, keeping the central cross right in the centre of our circle, but now lining up with the line that we've just drawn, and we're going to go to 140 degrees. Now I just need to move down a little bit on my screen, because 140 on the outside numbers is all the way around here. So I'm just going to mark that with a little dash. There we go. So I've marked my 140 degrees. Again, take my protractor away and join up with a straight line to the dot. And that piece was to do with people who came by car. So let's fill that in as we go. Next, we have an angle of 64 degrees. Now again, I need to just keep turning my protractor around so that it's lined up with the line that I've just added. So now 0 is here. 64 degrees, if I count round there, 60, 64 is going to be just here, the second dot that I drew there. Take that away, and again from the centre of my circle to the point that I marked, that is going to be bus. And then we've got our train at 96. So again, bring the protractor back in to the centre of our circle, turn it around until we are lined up with the line we've just drawn. And now we want to measure 96 degrees, which would be just about here, the second line point that I've drawn. Oh. And that was the group train, so let's write that in. And finally we have cycle. Now it says here that this is 32 degrees. A little check that you've been accurate or accurate enough is that this final angle should be the size that we already recognise it should have been at 32 degrees. Now if we line this up, here we go, if I just measure that, well that to me is 32 degrees, and so it is a sign that I have done all of the other sections exactly right, because I've ended up with the last angle already drawn. And so that was the group who cycle. And that is how you draw a pie chart. So in our next example, what we're looking at is a combination of using the ideas that we've just had to draw the pie chart, but also being able to read information from it. So we've been told that a primary school class are asked what their favourite colour is. The results are shown in the table, fill in the gaps and complete the pie chart. So the first thing that you'll probably notice here is that one piece of the pie chart has already been completed. It is the section for red, and in the corner of this piece you will notice this little square. Now that little square is the sign for 90 degrees, and so it's telling us that the angle for red is 90 degrees. We're going to need to use that in order to work out the frequencies. Now because we don't in this case know the total frequency, we need to start thinking about those proportional relationships, and the only part of this table where we know both pieces of information is here at yellow. We have 3 people, or 3 primary school students, at 45 degrees. So what we need to know is what each student is actually going to be worth. So each student must be 45 degrees divided by 3, because if 3 students make 45 degrees, then we can work out what each one is. 45 divided by 3 is 15, and therefore to turn frequency into an angle we're going to times by 15. But on the opposite side, if I want to turn an angle into a frequency, well, I will divide by 15. So 90 degrees for red, 90 degrees divided by 15, well that is 6. So there must be 6 students who liked red. In the pink section, 60 degrees was pink. Now 60 divided by 15 in order to work out the frequency. 60 divided by 15 is 4. For the blue section, well that is blue 7 times 15. So 7 times 15, 5 times 7 is 5, that is 35, sorry, and 1 times 7 is 10. With that, so 105 degrees. Now, the last section, a little bit more complicated because we don't have any information whatsoever. But there is one piece of information we know without actually being told, and that is that the total of the angles must be 360. So we can work out what the missing angle will have to be. We've already got 90, 135, 195, 200, 300 degrees in total. So what is left over? Well, there is 60 degrees left for other. And we already know from pink that 60 degrees is 4. And so another question we may have been asked is how many students were actually asked. Well, that is 6, 9, 13, 20, 24. Now we come to actually drawing the pie chart. And so now we need our protractor. Just make the protractor a little bit smaller. There we go. And we're going to start from the last line that was drawn, which was actually one that was already given to us at the start, right here at 90 degrees. And we're going to continue now round for yellow. Yellow was 45 degrees. So we're going to count around the outside to 45 and mark it with a dot. And again, we're just going to take our ruler and draw a line in. That is the section for yellow. And so I'll fill that in with yellow. Continuing around, take the protractor, line it up with the line that has just been drawn. Move it round, this time to 60 degrees is what we're next looking for, which is here. And we'll take the protractor away, draw in our straight line. And so that one is going to be pink. And keep going, turning your protractor around each time to the line that's just been drawn. And our next section is blue at 105 degrees. Carry on all the way around. 105 will be here. Take the protractor away and draw in your line. There we go. And so this bit will be blue and the remainder will be the other. Okay, so our final section takes us to actually a question where it is entirely about reading the pie chart. You've been given a pie chart showing the favourite types of movies of a group of people, and the results are all shown in the pie chart. So we have some people like superhero movies, some who like rom-coms, some who like just comedies, others who like horrors, and others who like other types of film. And we're told that 10 people preferred comedy. Now straight away we know no other information about this pie chart or about these people than 10 people prefer comedy. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to take our protractor and actually measure that section about comedy. And so let's just take our protractor, line it up, and let's measure the angle for comedy. So lined up, there we go. So if we read that, we have 50 degrees. That comedy would be 50 degrees. So that is important information. 50 degrees is 10 people. So if 10 people are 50 degrees, well, what is one person? Well, that would mean that one person is 5 degrees. So every person in our survey is worth 5 degrees. And so it says how many people preferred horror. Well, we are going to need to know how big that section is. So we're going to need to measure the horror section. And if we do measure the horror section, well, that's 0 around to 70. So that is 70 degrees. But 70 degrees isn't a number of people. 70 degrees, there are 5 degrees per person. So I'm going to need to divide that by 5 in order to find out how many people. And that would be 70 divided by 5, 14 people. The last question is about proportion. Now, if we are talking about proportion, we are generally talking about fraction. So we need a number out of a total. And so what proportion of people prefer superhero movies? Well, the first thing I want to know is what all the total number of people must have been. So it comes back again to if one person is 5 degrees. The question is, what would 360 degrees mean? And so, just like we've done in the previous question, if I know that the total number is 360 degrees, I need to divide that by 5 to work out how many people we are dealing with. So if I do 360 divided by 5, I actually get 72. And so there are 72 people who were asked about their favourite movies. It then comes to how many of them preferred superhero movies. Well, if I have a look at my angle, that is 120 degrees. So again, 120 degrees, if I want to turn that into people, I need to divide by 5. And if I divide by 5, that is 24. And 24 out of 72 is exactly the same as a third. Now, there is a slightly different way that we could have gone about that. If we didn't work out how many people were involved in total, we could actually just use the angles in the pie chart. We know that that pie chart must have a total of 360 degrees, and the superhero section is 120 degrees. If I simplify that fraction, 120 out of 360, I get exactly the same answer. I get a third again. So either way, we can either use the frequencies, like we've done here, or we can use the angles in order to get that proportion. And so we end with the exam question. This came from the Edexcel paper in June 2017, and it was on Foundation Paper 1. So this is a non-calculator question. And it says Year 9 students from Halley School were asked to choose one language to study. The table shows the information about their choices. So 56 students chose French, 40 chose Spanish, and 24 chose German. Draw an accurate pie chart to show this information. Now, in the question, they've given you an extra column. That is for you to put in your angles. It's a suggestion that they would like to see a little bit of working out. But the thing they haven't told you is how many people they are actually dealing with. And so in this case, we need to know how many that is. And so we're going to add them together. We're going to do 56 plus 40 plus 24 so that we can decide how many people we're dealing with. So 6 plus 4, 0, 3, 7, 12. So that is 120 students. Now we know that the total has to be 360 degrees. So how do I turn 120 into 360? Well, I multiply by 3. Because that is the relationship between the total frequency and the total angle, it's also the relationship between the individual frequencies. So I want to do 56 times 3. Well, that's going to be 50 times 3 is 150 plus 18, 168. We've got 40 times 3. Well, that's going to be 120. And 24 times 3, I can do it in a couple of ways. I can work out what is missing to fill in the gap, or I could just do 24 times 3. 24 times 3 is going to be 72. And at this point, we've got all the angles we require, so we just need to draw the pie chart. So we'll get our protractor, and we'll do the same as we have done in each question so far. We will measure the angles by lining up to the first line that we were given. And so 168 degrees is going to be all the way around here. Mark it in. There we go. Take the protractor away and drawing our straight line. And label it as we go, because the labels are going to be the final mark in this question. And continue. We only actually need to draw one more line because we've only got 3 sections. So if I turn this around, line it up with the line I've just drawn, and this time I want 120 degrees. 120 degrees would be right here. Again, take my protractor away and drawing a line. And fill in. This one was Spanish. And so the very last section must be the other language. It is German. Now, just to point out with this, on an exam, you are always given 1 or 2 degrees either side on every one of these angles. And so if you're just a little bit out, don't worry about it. As long as you've already given the angles you meant to draw, you're in a very good position to get most of the marks on this question anyway.